What is going on? The Thanksgiving hangover is done. We're back into the work week, back into the holiday season. Thank you for tuning in to the MMA Podcast, I believe number 149. It is December 3rd, 2015. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a card last weekend to break down. UFC South Korea, Henderson versus Masvidal. Our very own Weston Eagle was at the event. Maybe try and get him to call in or something. It was a fun card. A pretty decent week's worth of MMA news. And we're also going to break down that Paige versus Sage card so we don't have to break down 3 cards next week. It'll be a fun show. Let's do it.
You're listening to the MMA Podcast.
Thank you, Lenny Hart, and thank you, the listener, for tuning in. Like I said, it is the MMA Podcast, December 3rd. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at the MMA Podcast, themmapodcast.com. Should be a fun show, like I said. The UFC South Korea card we'll talk about. Got a few clips dialed up here, and like I briefly mentioned just a few seconds ago, next week is gonna be it's gonna be a fun week to be an MMA fan. It's gonna be a fun week to be an MMA fan in Las Vegas. I've sort of been spoiled as far as going to a lot of 2015's best events. You know, I didn't go to a single fight till 2013 and 2015. I've been to 182, 187, and 189. Those being the Jones-Cormier, 187. Man, I'm already blanking. That was Cormier Rumble, and Weidman Belfort in 189 was obviously supposed to be Conor versus Aldo. Instead, we got Conor versus Mendez. Was still a pretty stacked card. Was lucky enough to be in Vegas for all of those cards, and this sort of, I guess this will sort of be the capstone of the quartet of just 4 big cards the UFC has done in Vegas, and it'll be capped off by the most anticipated fight of 2015, Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo. There were rumors that Aldo might be injured. Apparently, he planted those in his own camp to see if there was a leak, and his experiment, I guess, failed or went right, depending how you look at it. Either way, I cannot wait until that's a stacked main card. Pat and I were just talking about it. You have Weidman Rockhold. That's going to be a great card. You got Aldo McGregor, you got Jacare Romero, you got Nelson versus Maia, Jeremy Stevens coming off that tiger knee to fight one of the most exciting young up-and-coming featherweights in Max Holloway. On the prelims, you got names like Uriah Faber, Kevin Lee, Tisha Torres. A fun scrap on the Fight Pass between John McDessie and Yancy Medeiros. That's going to be a fun-ass card. We got the tough card on Friday. Frankie Edgar, Chad Mendez, Edson Barboza, Tony Ferguson, Lauzon versus Dunham, Ryan LaFleur, Mike Pierce. These are two of the more stacked cards, not just in December, but in the second half of 2015. And the Thursday card, they rarely ever do back-to-back-to-back cards. They'll do a back-to-back card every blue moon, but back-to-back-to-back is very rare. They've maybe done it once or twice, but they're doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we're actually going to break down Thursday's card this week, just so we don't have 3 cards to break down next week. We're just getting the first one out of the way, and that's also a pretty decent card. UFC Fight Night, Namajunas versus Van Zant. That card headlined by Thug Rose and 12-gauge Paige. Jim Miller, Michael Chiesa, Sage Northcutt versus Cody Pfister, Elias Theodoro versus Thiago Santos. Our boy Aljamain Sterling fighting on the UFC Fight Pass card, looking for a win against Johnny Eduardo. King Kevin Casey from Tough 17. Tim Means versus John Howard is a very underrated main event of the prelims. We got a motherfucker of a 3 days of fights, and I'm looking forward to watching them. I'm looking forward to breaking them down with a co-host, a voice you've probably come to be very familiar with. It's the voice of our very own P Money on Twitter at Sweet Pappy Jones. What up, bud?
Jake and Bay, we spitting venom like Jake the Snake. Here to break it down with you on a Wednesday night, Thursday morning, depending on where you're located. Maybe it's a Thursday in the middle of the day for some of our UK fans, like Ray and Jay.
You all right?
You all right? We're going to MMA Mental over here, Jake. It's been a great international little flavor. We had the Latin America card a couple weeks ago. We just had the South Korea card, their first card in South Korea, which happened on Saturday. We got that to break down, and then, as you mentioned, we got this little break this weekend, but then after that, the 3 cards in 3 days. I want to say maybe they've done 3 cards in 4 days or something like that. I don't know that they've ever gone for the 3 for 3. But we'd have to break out the Wikipedia or something for that. But either way, this is just going to be fantastic. You look at the Namajunas Paige Van Zandt card that we're going to break down there. I mean, damn near everybody's got a Wikipedia page. That's a sweet card.
Except
especially
for Andre Stahl, you motherfucker. You're the only person on all 3 of these fight cards without a damn Wikipedia. We almost had a clean sweep. Oh, wait, no, actually, I'm wrong. Marcio Alexandre Jr. on UFC 194 also doesn't. Also, Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger. So, I'll shut the fuck up.
Well, hey, either way, it's a good card, really, from top to bottom. It's going to be good to break that down. And the first card in South Korea was an interesting one. Definitely had some points worth noting, so it's going to be great to break that down as well.
Yeah, I just texted our friend Alan on Twitter at Westlin Eagle AH. Give him a follow. If you actually, I don't know, if you have a weak stomach, don't follow him. But if you're into like weird, demented, like fucked up shit from Louisiana, then follow him on Twitter at Westlin Eagle AH, and his brother at Hero Shinwoo. Alan was in South Korea with his wife for 2 weeks. He had always wanted to visit. He has a lot of buddies over there with Korean top team, knows like the coach and a bunch of fighters, and is a huge fan of all the Korean fighters. And went over there for a couple weeks with the kind of main event of his trip being UFC Seoul. He went to the open workouts and the weigh-ins and bought a bunch of souvenirs. It looked like a really fun time. But yeah, I don't know if he's sleeping, because if you are listening live, it is sort of a late show. We've been doing late shows. I don't know if that reflects my schedule or what, but yeah, it's 1:18 over on the East Coast, so it's just past midnight over there in the swamps of Louisiana. So he might be sleeping, he might be working out, he might be at work, but if he's free, I gave him the number and told him to call up and talk about his trip. But yeah, this was at the Olympic Gymnastics Arena. Pretty moderately attended event. I think it had about 12,000 people, which is, I think, what you get for a standard fight night. It was in the capital of South Korea, Seoul. And yeah, it was a fun event, especially coming off just the nightmares that were the we had the Latin America 2 finale. That was just like all decisions. And that Belfort Henderson 3 card, just, I mean, really, aside from the main event and co-main event, there was nobody of note really on the entire card, which, man, we've been talking a lot recently about these shallow events. Well, I guess we're seeing why they're shallow. I mean, shit, like half the fighters I know are going to be fighting on that 3-day weekend for UFC 194 in Las Vegas. God, I cannot wait for that. But, yeah, getting back to UFC South Korea. Started with a little bit of controversy. Dong Young Kim fought on the first fight. Not that Dong Young Kim. This is the first time I've ever known of two UFC fighters to have the exact same name, let alone be fighting on the same card. But Dong Hyun Kim, spelled the exact same way, DongHyunKim, Dong Young Kim, both welterweights, funny enough. They are both different people, and they fought, funny enough, opponents with similar names. The more well-known Dong Young Kim, the stun gun, who's fought a lot of big-name fighters, and is a big-name fighter himself, probably the biggest out of South Korea. He fought a guy named Dominic. The other one fought a guy named Dominique. So I don't know if the UFC was just fucking with us or what. But the more well-known Kim won on the co-main event, but the lesser-known one fought in the first fight. Seemed to be losing, and Dominique Steele, he slams him, but coming down from the slam, they butt heads. It seemed obviously inadvertent. You slam a guy, and when the opponent, when the canvas stops the other guy, the only thing that's going to stop you is your opponent. So that was sort of unfortunate. It's currently still ruled a win for Steele, a KO, slam, and elbows win. But it seemed pretty obvious that the reason Kim wasn't able to defend himself after that slam was because of the incidental headbutt. Just followed up with some vicious elbows that actually won him a $50,000 bonus. Do you think that fight should be overturned to maybe a no contest? I mean, I think we can agree that it shouldn't be a loss for Steele, because I don't think even if he's trying to do that, I don't think there's any way you're able to headbutt a guy with just, I mean, you watch it in slow-mo, and it seems very obviously an accident. So I think we can agree that Steele shouldn't lose the fight, but do you think it should be maybe overturned to a no contest?
Yeah, I think a no contest would be appropriate because, I mean, it's not. I don't believe it's legal to spike an opponent. Well, I know it's not legal to spike an opponent when you're trying to take them down. DDT style, if you will, to borrow a wrestling term. But I want to say you also can't try to slam the back of their head on the mat. And I don't think that was the case either. I don't think he was going for that. I think it was just, a good old-fashioned vigorous takedown, and he was looking to drive his head into his chest or something like that, but ended up driving his head right into his jaw and just kind of, had that cumulative effect when he bounced down from the takedown. And that was definitely what put him out. I think that really should be ruled a no contest. And, all credit to Dominique Steele. I think he definitely could have, won that fight just on the takedown itself. And if you were able to get some of the elbows like that, he had been putting on. But it was. I think that fight definitely ended because of that headbutt, and should be ruled no contest. It was a good showing, though. I think he was maybe not in the best position. I want to say the second Dong Hyun Kim was doing all right in that fight, actually. Hanging in there. It was a competitive fight up until that slam, so it was unfortunate that the illegal headbutt ended the fight. So, I think it should be a no contest, not a DQ.
Were you able to watch the entire card, or did you only catch the main card, those main 4 fights?
No, I was able to catch a whole card. I didn't watch it live, of course. I think our last podcast we actually finished that just a couple hours before the card was starting. But no, after I want to say some point in the afternoon, I started up the prelims and was able to watch it through up until the whole main card. So
Nice. Anything stand out for you on the prelims? I actually only was able to watch the main card. I'm usually able to watch the entire one, but it's final season. I gotta get my priorities in order, which will obviously still include watching the UFC. But I did watch the highlights of the prelims, but wasn't able to sit down and spend the 2.5 hours to watch all the prelims. A lot of names I hear about from Alan because he's big fans of them. Dongyi Yang, Taehyung Bang, Sohee Ham, all of them winning. His boy Yui Chul Nam losing to Mike De La Torre via split decision. Bang's a guy who's I mean, Jesus Christ, going back to 2008, losing to George Masvidal in Japan. He hasn't been able to string 2 straight wins or 2 straight losses in a row. He's gone loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Then a win against Leo Kuntz. The fight we thought might have been a work. I said, it's looking like maybe Bang might throw the fight. Apparently he didn't, winning the split decision. Still, I guess, a mystery why he went from being a 2-1 favorite to a 6-1 underdog hours before the card started. What happened there? Someone probably got executed in the mob over there or something. But yeah, Dongyi Yang, I think his name's like the Ox, with a pretty impressive TKO. Freddie Serrano at flyweight. You rarely see fights at flyweight get stopped this early, but due to an arm injury, Freddie Serrano, the winner, with less than a minute into the fight. What stood out for you before we hop up to the main card?
well, really, that Freddie Serrano fight, as you mentioned, that one really stood out to me. Freddie Serrano looks like a pretty solid 125-pounder, real big, almost I dare say a Hector Lombard of the flyweight, that kind of build when you look at the guy. And yeah, he seemed to have some real good ground and pound, some good takedowns. This gentleman, Yao Jikoi, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, probably not, but he was trying to post, getting taken down, and he just went and planted his right arm, and his elbow just became dislocated. And man, it was not a good look. Definitely looked
Difficult
painful
to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty rough there. Arms should not bend that way. But no, Freddie Serrano definitely making a name for himself there. Sohee Ham winning a good one against Courtney Casey. Those two ladies, they put on a real good scrap there. That was a nice fight. Definitely fight of the night caliber material. It was a good showing for the ladies for sure. Dongyi Yang,
one of my favorite nicknames in MMA is Sohee Ham, whose nickname is Hamderley Silva. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why with the fight she had with Courtney Casey. These girls, they were slugging, and chugging. It was a good one.
Slugging and chugging.
Dongyi Yang, he did a good job. He did what he was supposed to do. Got the TKO against Jay Collier, and in the second round, good to see him back in the UFC and to get a win like we're accustomed to see him do. He's always had pretty good hands over there at middleweight, and it was a nice little bunch of ground and pound takedown that hooked him up with that TKO against Collier. Some real good accurate shots right on the temple to put him out. So some pretty good performances. Although I must say, even some of the fights that went to decision, I want to say for the most part they went to the right person, but one that we'll get into definitely did not. And there was 5 split decisions overall. Like I'm pretty sure, no, one of the fights, only one of the fights that went to decision was a unanimous decision. All five
That
of the
is
six
correct,
fights were split decisions. Very
including
interesting.
both on the main card. Yeah.
Yeah, so super rare you see that much division among judges in a UFC card. Very interesting there. That definitely stood out to me throughout the course of this one, as well as lots of low blows. Everybody getting kicked in the dick. Even the ladies' fight got stopped for low blows. Um, Very interesting in that respect as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. I caught the highlights. Looked like a lot of action. It wasn't a boring card, but you had a lot of fights going to a decision. On the main card, we'll save the main event for its own topic, but let's talk about those 3 fights. The more well-known Dong Young Kim getting a first-round TKO, along with Do Ho Choi, the Korean Superboy, over Sam Cecilia. He called out Tatsuya Kawajiri afterwards. One of his idols, a guy who's been around the sport a while, is a legend in his own right. The Japanese fighter, the Crusher, Kawajiri. He apparently is going to be on, I think, the Friday card. I think he is going to be fighting on the Ultimate Fighter 22 finale, and he needs an opponent. And I mean, it is super short notice. It's like a week and 2 days. I don't know if it would make sense to maybe pull Kawajiri out and do it in like a month or 2 instead. But I would like to see Choi, take on someone of a Crusher's level. He's showed he's a more than decent fighter at featherweight. Give him someone of notice or of note. Sexyama making his return. He's fought like this. I think his like second fight since 2012 or something. Losing a split decision that I went back and I checked out on MMA decisions. It looked like only a couple people scored that towards Sexyama. And it was like maybe like a fifth toward Akiyama, and the other people had either a pretty fair split between draws and scoring it to Alberto Mina. It seemed like everyone gave the third round to Akiyama. Everyone gave the second round to Mina. And it's how you score that first round. You could probably score it either way. It seems like, judges in the media may have given that a 10-10. Do you give any 10-8 rounds? I don't know. It was a fight I could have seen a lot of scorecards for. How did you score Minya versus Sexyama, and what did you think of the KOs by Stun Gun and Superboy?
Well, the first time I watched it, I actually had scored the Akiyama fight for Akiyama. I thought he had done enough to get the W in that fight. I seem to recall that one being marred by low blows as well. I would like to go back and rewatch that one in particular again. But I liked Akiyama in that fight. Minya did a good job. Akiyama certainly, I feel, could have tried to go for the finisher. He really put in so much work with the lead leg, even after the first round. Albert Minya, his leg was just so swollen and beat the hell up. I really thought he could have stepped in there and got the finish, Akiyama. If he applied a little bit of pressure there, but
Yeah.
that was a close one. I definitely was impressed with Doo Ho Choi because his opponent Sam Cecilia is no pushover. He's got heavy hands, solid boxing, decent wrestling base there, and He came in and, man, just smoked him super quick. Minute 33 seconds, showing off great hands, some good grappling skills there, and how short the fight was. Made sure to keep it standing, and he just put it on Cecilia. Some really precision striking. Cecilia, I don't believe he had ever been TKO'd before that, so super impressive showing there. If he wants to fight Cavalieri, I say, man, give it to him. If the kid wants to fly to Vegas and get his scrap on with Cavalieri in like a week and a couple days notice, Cavalieri, he's no slouch. You know, he's not going to turn that fight down. At least I doubt he would. If he is still on the card technically, just what you said, a week and 2 days out from the event itself. So he's still being listed.
I guess now
there.
we are a week and a day, and I really wanted to quickly say about the Sexyama fight. I was thinking about a different fight when I was breaking that down because I just thought of it, and I remembered how Sexyama rallied back in the third round. I was like, wait, I was completely talking about the wrong fight. I think I gave Minya round 1 and 2, and round 3 I gave a 10-8 to Akiyama. He definitely won it. It's not. We don't see enough 10-8s in the sport a lot. We probably should have had a draw in the Gastelum Magny fight, and we didn't because they didn't want to give Calvin a 10-8 when he deserved it. And I think here they didn't give Sexyama a 10-8 when he deserved it. Minya ended up winning the fight. I think the scorecard here, pretty obviously, honestly, for me, was a 28-28 with Minya winning the first 2 rounds 10-9 and Akiyama coming back in the third round with a strong rally that was enough to maybe salvage him the draw on my scorecard. Obviously, the judges there disagreed, but that's how this sport goes.
Yeah, no, that's you have to finish it. I mean, as Dana White said, ever since the Ultimate Fighter speeches, you don't want to leave it in the hands of the judges. It's a relative term, or it's a relative term. It's a relative game. I mean, really everything is relative in this world if you really want to get down to it. But it's so subjective. You know, what do you look for as the criteria for a fight? We've talked about it many times before. And the best way to eliminate the subjectiveness is to make it definitive and finish it, get the submission, get the knockout, or just completely pummel someone so bad to the point where there's no way you cannot win the fight. Those are really the only ways you can go about doing it. And yeah, we did see a good amount of finishes on this fight, but man, every one of them except for one, there was a split decision. So it just lets you know the subjectiveness. It's everybody looks at things a little differently, I suppose. So you got to make that definitive statement, get that finish.
Speaking of splits, we had another split on the main event, but really quickly, I want to address one thing. I just received a Skype message from my trusty co-host, Pat. You know, during the show, if one of us needs to exchange a message, we are on Skype, and I can be like, yo, Pat, stretch out your breakdown for the co-main event, because homie's got to take a piss. I'll maybe do that every 10 episodes. I'm usually good about taking a whiz before the show, but I just got a message from you on the old Skype saying, bro, sorry I was stammering a little bit there. My house alarm was going off. I could tell maybe like someone in the periphery was trying to get your distance or something was going on, but for your goddamn house alarm to be going off, you kept your cool. Like, I could tell maybe something was going on, but you were still making sense and talking MMA and, you know, stuttering, stammering. I do enough of that myself on the show. So props for not completely locking up, because I don't know if I would have been able to keep speaking that smoothly through a house alarm. B, the more pressing, important question, is your house secure? Has there been a break-in? Are you dead?
No, I'm quite alive. Everything is okay. It's a windy night here in Southern California. The house is secure. We've got a rather nice compound situation going on over here at the P Money Layer, so no need to worry about that. The alarm is the motion perimeter. We got the infrared beam set up. The motion sensor trips. So somebody in the yard, something like that. But it's okay. Every
Is
now and
the
then,
perimeter secure?
There's also a
peri-
chance that he's dead.
the perimeter is secure. Every now and then on these windy SoCal nights, a little tree or a little bush, may trip at something like that. But it's all right. We hit the cameras, did a little pan and scan, a little tilt and zoom. We're all good over here.
Do you actually have cameras?
Night vision cameras, Jake.
Are
Not
you
just
serious?
cameras. Night vision cameras.
Like,
Man,
actually?
Night vision cameras. Well, I don't want to give away the full,
You got a moat?
the full whatnot and everything. Damn near, Jake. Damn near. We ain't playing up in here. We ain't playing.
I live in an apartment, and it would have freaked me out maybe a few years ago when I was smoking a lot more weed, and I was paranoid 24/7. A cop lives right across the hall from me. It's fucking awesome. A cop car parked in front of my building most of the time. Fucking perfect. My shit's never gonna get broken into. That is the best deterrent ever. But I do digress. Let's get back in and get to the main event. A main event which I think we might disagree on. I scored this one to Benson Henderson. I thought he got the better of Jorge Masvidal in every round outside of the first round. I think rounds 2 and 5 were pretty obvious toward Bendo. Rounds 3 and 4, they were close. Round 4 especially, I think you could have maybe called a 10-10 draw, but I gave rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5 to Bendo. So it was a closer fight than the scorecard maybe lets on, because a lot of those rounds that Ben won were closer than just an easy 10-9. But at the same time, whether you score at 49-46, even give Masvidal one of the rounds that I scored toward Bendo, that's still a 48-47. Your boy P Money scored it 47-48 to Jorge Masvidal, who I will say put up a better fight than a lot of us expected. Most of us were kind of expecting Bendo to fuck this dude up. He was like plus like 260. But Masvidal held his own. I was watching with big eyes when I watched the replay and Jorge won the first round. The judges who scored the fight officially, Barry Foley scored the first round to Bendo. I don't know what fight he was watching. But yeah, it was funny. 2 judges scored the first round to Masvidal. The only real, I think, undisputed round was that second round, because in the third round, 2 judges gave it to Masvidal, and in the fourth and fifth round, 1 judge each gave it to Gamebred. But it was Bendo who won the split decision in a night of split decisions. You disagree. Why do you disagree with that split decision?
Well, I disagree because if you go back, now I don't necessarily always go with the fight metric. And one specific reason, although if you go back and you take a look at the fight metric for Benson Henderson versus Jorge Masvidal, it was a good fight. It was a close fight, very competitive fight. And again, this is one of those ones you don't want to leave it in the hands of the judges, because how do you score it? Well, the fight metric, you look at this. I don't have it pulled up in front of me, but I believe Jorge Masvidal landed approximately almost 80 more total strikes than Benson Henderson. But in the fight, they have Benson Henderson scoring like 70 or 80, something like that, significant strikes, landing maybe 7 to 10 more significant strikes overall than Jorge Masvidal. When I really don't feel Benson Henderson landed maybe 10 significant strikes throughout that entire fight. He had a couple crisp jabs, but Jorge, he was on point for a guy who was training for a 3-round fight, mind you. Got bumped up to a 5-round main event at short notice here. He hung in there pretty good, and he was not getting hit with really anything. Benson Henderson was wall installing him, hitting him with these heel attacks, and Jorge Masvidal for at pretty much every single turn was out grappling Benson Henderson. He was turning him around on that cage way more often. He was hitting clean combos on the breaks. You even look at round one, where a lot of judges scored round one to Jorge Masvidal. Now, and another thing, this is very important, because when you go back and rewatch this fight, you may want to turn down the volume, because all you can hear when you're watching this fight is Kenny Florian sucking Benson Henderson's dick. It is so fucking crazy. The fourth round, I'm like, Benson Henderson, pretty much in my eyes, he got beat that fourth round. I thought that was handily Jorge Masvidal's. Again, I want to go back and rewatch this fight again, just because it is a close fight, but I felt that Jorge pretty clearly won this fight and won this round, and all Kenny Florian can do is talk about how Benson Henderson's so good and he just won this round. He's just doing a little more to win this round. I'm like, he's just doing a little more. He's getting punked up. He was ragdoll choked out. He's getting way more cleaner combos landed on him. And then at the end of the round, the trailer pieces together these shots that barely land, which is all they're replaying in the fight. Meanwhile, if you go back and look, Jorge Masvidal was landing harder. He was landing cleaner. And in my opinion, he out-wrestled Benson Henderson. So how do you not score the fight to the guy? I believe he had more. He absolutely had better submission attempts. He got way closer to any kind of submission than Benson Henderson ever did. He was on top or in a dominant position longer than Benson Henderson ever was. And he was piecing him up with the harder strikes standing up. How do you not win the fight when you're doing that? So that's my belief. I want to say I gave 1, 3, and 4 to Masvidal. Again, I'd have to go back and rewatch that fight. But, I mean, again, they were all close rounds. They were all close, and you can't leave it in the hands of the judges, because you never know how any one person is going to score the fight. But that's how I saw that one.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. It's one of those things where I can see the argument you're making. I do disagree with it, but I could see you scoring it possibly 48-47 toward Masvidal, in anywhere in the range from 49-46 Bendo to 47-48 Game Bread. As long as you're scoring it within that range, I say you're a qualified MMA fan. If you're scoring it like 50-45 toward either dude, I'm like, no, you don't know your shit. But I can see, saying that fourth round. I'm actually looking here on MMA Decisions, a very interesting site where you can see how the media scored any MMA decision, how the judges scored it, and how the fans scored it. They have polls for each one. So far, about 75 people have voted on this one. The round four breakdown: 50% 10-9 Bendo, 38% Masvidal, and 10% a 10-10 draw. So, I mean, that's very close.
Yeah, that's interesting. And, I mean, again, in this, now maybe it could be just the fact that I'm not the biggest Benson Henderson fan, but if you go back, rewatch this fight one more time, and, actually, maybe you should turn up the volume, because just listen to how hard Kenny Florian is riding that dick. of Benson Henderson. Crazy, just all over the nuts. I'm like, the biasness is just don't be influenced by it, but just be cognizant of it, but don't be influenced by it. There's a fine line. It's a fine line. Just be aware that that's what's happening. But no, I go back and watch that even in the first round when Kenny Florian, he's like, oh, Masvidal got dropped by Benson Henderson. Okay, well, what really happened? Masvidal, he's leaping in with this like flying leg kick to the body type of thing, maybe an ill-advised move. He's planted on one foot, kind of flying in midair, and Benson goes to punch him or something like that. Has more the effect of a push. This was not, he's like, oh, he drops Masvidal. No, he didn't drop Masvidal. He pushed him off balance, essentially. He was not dropped by a concussive blow to the head. He was more so pushed off balance. And you could tell that was the case because Jorge Masvidal immediately pops back up to his feet. Benson tries to pressure him against the cage. Masvidal swings him around, reverses the pressure on him, and then he plants a solid punch on the liver, puts a sweet combo on him. Masvidal was looking on his game in this one. I feel that he was rightly scored the win by one of the judges, and I feel he should have gotten it all around. But again, that's just my interpretation of the fight. Certainly a lot different than Kenny Florian's.
Jorge is now 1-1 at welterweight after losing a split decision to Al Iaquinta, a very controversial split back in April. He moved up to 170 in July. He KO'd Cesar Ferreira in the first round. Now loses a split decision, another controversial split to Bendo. Where does he go from here? Do you think he stays at welterweight or should he move back down to 155? I say move back down. It didn't seem like he was having issues making weight. I mean, I can't remember him ever missing weight back to his Strikeforce days. He's not one of these guys who looks, totally sucked out. I think he's like maybe 5'10", 5'11", and not, a crazy muscly build. And when you start to move up the ranks at welterweight, I'm sorry, but I think you have a lot of fighters who are either too big, like a Neil Magny, or a Dong Young Kim, or a Tarek Safadine, these giant lanky guys, or you have just these pit bulls, these strong-ass guys like Rick Story or Kelvin Gastelum. I think Kelvin Gastelum railroads Masvidal through the canvas. You put him against one of these top guys, not even thinking about guys at the very top, like a Condit or a Woodley or a Rory. Fucking Rory would smoke his ass. And not that I think he's a bad fighter, but I think he belongs at lightweight where the people he's going to be fighting aren't necessarily going to have a giant length advantage like a Rory or a Magny, or a giant strength advantage like a Kelvin Gastelum. He probably should have won the fight against Al Iaquinta. I think that split decision was a lot more controversial than this one. You had the whole crowd booing, which sucks for Al, who is a very good lightweight and shouldn't get fucking booed. But, it was a bad call by the judges. One of the judges was admittedly biased. Fuckhead Doug Crosby. One of my least favorite people in the sport, which you already know if you listen to this podcast for a while. But, move back down to 155. You were fucking running through really good guys. What did you do? You beat Healy, Cruikshank, James Krause, and Al Iaquinta. Arguably, I guess you really didn't formally. But those are all really good fighters. Fighters he has wins over. He beat Michael Chiesa via Darce. He beat Tim Means. Move back down. You have new guys popping up there. You have Michael Johnson ranked 5th currently. There is room to grow at 55, and I think he has a much better chance there. What do you think?
Well, I think, maybe this is due to the IV ban situation.
Very
Masvidal,
good
I
point.
mean, he has been in the game for so long. That could be an issue as well. As you get older, after repeated weight cuts, it does get a little bit harder and it does tax on you. And he's been in it for a minute. I mean, like you mentioned, he was fighting for that Strikeforce championship back in the day against Gilbert Melendez. He's been towards the top echelon of the game, much like Benson Henderson has been for some time, and it's just now, and it also like Benson Henderson, the WEC guys, they were not getting the credit that they are until years after they came to the UFC. And it's the same thing with the Strikeforce guys. They are now, years after paying their dues under the UFC banner, people are now seeing, okay, they're just as legit as these guys. They've always been at the top, or at least there have been the names and there have been the talent outside of the UFC that have been fighting at that level for some time, and they have been able to bring it over to the UFC and maintain that same high level of performance and prove that they're up there at the top. And Masvidal, I think he could be successful really at either division, although like you mentioned, 155 would probably be his best bet. I mean, again, unless the shift goes back to where you see a bunch of the 170 guys going up to 185. We could see everybody going back up a weight class, do this IV thing. I mean, a lot of the guys at 170, I mean, my goodness, you don't think Magny should be a 185? He's a very tall 170 pounder. I'm very surprised he can make that weight. Yeah, but man, Masvidal, I think he can. I think he can compete either way, much like Benson Henderson. I mean, especially if their weight, if everybody goes back up a little bit. I was also surprised that Benson Henderson was not as small compared to Jorge Masvidal. I thought Masvidal would be a little bit larger than him than he was, and they were a little bit closer than I thought. And I said, maybe. Maybe 170 is not a bad move for Benson. Who knows? This whole IV ban thing, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out and how that affects where a lot of guys are fighting these days. So if people start migrating north a weight class, maybe that'll be the place to stay.
Yeah, and we've been on UFC Seoul a while, but one last topic I want to bring up before we move on to the news. Benson Henderson, the winner on the main event, now 2-0 since popping up to 170. He had 2 straight losses to the 2 fighters who are fighting this month for the lightweight title. And Rafael Dos Anjos, he lost via KO first round. And Donald Cerrone, who won a unanimous decision in the rubber match of one of my favorite MMA trilogies of all time. Moved up to 170. He defeated Brandon Thatch via 4th round rear naked choke, choked him out. And now Jorge Masvidal via split decision. I do want to talk about his potential free agency, but let's save that for the very end. But let's assume he stays in the UFC. The UFC re-signs him, because what the UFC will normally try and do is they'll aggressively try to re-sign fighters before their contract expires, because they don't like their names being free agents. They don't, they like guys who get big wins and big knockouts. Well, you're not going anywhere because we have you on a contract for two more fights, 3, 4, however many more. Benson, one of these guys who, you have stuff like Reebok and stuff where the fighters look like they're getting taken advantage of. You're going to have more fighters react like Benson and do the rare thing of letting their contract expire. So, actually, no, we'll save the contract talks for a second from now. But if he stays in the UFC, if he re-signs, who should he fight next? Last week, I was saying you give the winner of Magny Gastelum, the guy who defeated their opponent, if that makes sense. So if Gastelum won, give him Maia, or the winner of Nelson Maia. If Magny won, give him Woodley. So I'm saying still give Magny that Woodley fight, which leaves the winner of Maia and Nelson open. Let's give Bindo the winner of Damian Maia versus Gunnar Nelson. That would be a fun fight. I mean, just the grappling skill and think Damian Maia versus Bindo. Holy fuck, that would be a really fun fight. Guys who aren't really known for striking, but if it goes to the mat, you have no idea what's going to happen. Maia, being the favorite in that fight against Nelson, should win at UFC 194, but Nelson's won fights as an underdog before, including against the aforementioned Brandon Thatch. Benson versus Maia. That would be a super fun fight. Give him the winner of Maia Nelson.
Damn, that's not a bad matchup right there. I think, man, Benson Henderson, I think he would get just strangled up by Damian Maia. I mean, Maia is too big for Benson Henderson. Benson Henderson is a fantastic grappler.
Aren't they about the same size? How big is Maia?
I want to say Maia's 6 even, maybe 5'11".
All right. Yeah,
Benson Henderson is
5'9", 5'10", around there.
Yeah, 5'9". I want to say they had him coming in at for the South Korea card.
Officially, Maia is listed at 6 feet tall with a 6 foot reach exactly, while Bindo has his height at 5'9", his reach at 5'10". So Damian would have a 3-inch height and a 2-inch reach advantage on Bindo. Smooth.
Yeah.
Benson Henderson.
Smooth Benson Henderson. If they wanted to fast track Benson Henderson, put him up there in that 170-pound title shot contention, I think that's a fight to make right there. But heck, I would also like to see him go up maybe against, say, Rick Story. I don't know if Rick Story even has a fight lined up. We haven't seen him fight for well over a year now, since he actually took a split decision, speaking of, from Gunnar Nelson, another guy who you were talking about there. So, hey, this is a guy who already beat Gunnar. Actually, scratch that. You can't do that. Benson and I doubt they would make that fight, because Benson and Rick Story are actually training together at the MMA lab, I believe it is. Jake, I think you hit the nail right on the head. Then that shut me the fuck up on that train of thought. Hey, unless Rick Story and Benson Henderson were down to scrap it out, I think that'd be an entertaining match. Rick Story definitely seems to be on the resurgence since he started training at the MMA lab. So I've always thought he's definitely in that top 10, potentially even top 5 of UFC 170 pounders. Rick Story, has one of the most legit victories over Johnny Hendricks to date. I would dare say the only legit victory, although Josh Koscheck maybe deserved to get one over him. But yeah, Rick Story, you can't take that away from him. And Johnny Hendricks, by all means, should be the 170-pound champ right now. So, tough competitor there. But Benson Henderson, man, let's see him take on the Nelson Maia winner.
And talking about his free agency, from Benson himself, he said, quote, "I'm not trying to send a message of any type, but if it plays out a certain way, I want to have some pretty good memories to go out on. Only thing I know is I intend to retire in the UFC from the UFC. When I retire, it will be in the UFC. I know that for sure. But I'm going to test the market, yes." What that says to me is he maybe trying to work for, leverage, potential other deals to make the UFC pay up a bit more. It's funny. I saw something similar happen, I think, today on the Joe Rogan podcast with Demetrius Johnson, which you should go check out if you have not heard it yet. Rogan says something like, August 2016, my contract with the UFC is up. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing, commentary in the UFC, which would be a shame. Rogan, not only one of my favorite comics, but he's a great sports commentator. I mean, for all the fuck ups Goldie makes, Rogan, for the most part, is a subjective and informative and colorful announcer. But he said, contract runs out in August. I don't know if I'm going to come back or not. All that does is give him more leverage, and it's just going to make the price tag for him coming back to go up. So whether or not you are going to come back or you're not, the wise move is to say, I don't know, because you just have the better leverage. It's easy business. I sort of think Bendo is doing the same thing, but if he wants to leave, I'm sure Bellator is going to offer him a decent amount. Coker is throwing around that Viacom money. Josh Thompson said he really wants him to go over there. Some interesting matchups against maybe a Chandler, against a Will Brooks. Maybe we'd see that. Road FC apparently offered him $200,000, which compared to, I think, in his last fights, I think he made 48-48 against Dos Anjos, Cerrone, and Thatch. And he's earning a paltry $15,000 a fight with Reebok. So, I mean, he would make more money fighting for Road FC, as sad as it is. One FC, our boy Ben Askren fighting over there. They're really starting to tap into the Asian market, and I'm sure they would love to bring Bendo over and be their new champion at 155. I think their current champion is Shinya Aoki. That would be a fun fight. So lots of possibilities. The World Series of Fighting is always out there. If I had to guess, though, I think he's just trying to leverage Dana. It sounds like he was very careful with his words in that interview to not burn any bridges with Zuffa. Smart. But yeah, I think he's gonna come crawling back to Dana and Lorenzo and re-sign with the UFC. What do you think?
Well, you never know. I mean, look at Ben Askren. Who really thought that Bellator would cut him, or that he would go and sign with One Fighting Championship? It's money that talks, and Road Fighting Championship, I want to say they are part of the network of mixed martial arts promotion that affiliate with One Fighting Championship. I don't know if I'm correct in that one. I want to say they associate, but Road Fighting Championship offering Benson Henderson $200,000. I mean, if that's a base pay, I want to say Benson's fight against Brandon Thatch, his very last fight, which was a main event. All we know disclosed was the 50,000 fight of the night, but before that, his main event, it was a co-main versus Donald Cerrone. I want to say he had a $48,000 base pay disclosed. And that's about what he's been making. Even as the champion, he was making about $45,000 base pay. So if Road is offering him $200,000, you would think UFC has to step up and match that, because if you're Benson Henderson, why would you not go and take that if the UFC is not willing to match that? And again, with the sponsorship opportunities and just the way things are going nowadays, you'd have to imagine you could probably get more money altogether than what the Reebok sponsorship for the UFC could, even if you are going to Road Fighting Championship. So I think it's definitely possible. I mean, most fighters want to compete in the UFC. I mean, especially Benson Henderson, former 155-pound champion. You imagine this is a guy that wants to try and get back to champion status again and do so in the UFC. But also at a certain point, if there's an opportunity for you to just clean house and make a ton of cash for a couple years, I mean, that's got to be a good prospect. Benson Henderson, he's been on the wrong side. I mean, again, I would argue that he lost this fight, and in the last 5, 6, 7 fights, he has just barely won some of them. A couple, like 2, 3 split decisions in his last 4 or 5 fights, and then the Rustam Habilov fight, he was able to come back and get a choke after being completely just butt fucked that entire fight. He was getting the shit beat out of him for basically that entire fight until he was able to snatch up this 4th round submission out of nowhere. And he has just not been looking on top of his game as of late. If he can get some money, crushing some cans elsewhere, hey, who knows? That's you got to make the smart move for your family at a certain point and think about your life after fighting.
Yeah, it's very true, and this is a guy in Benson who, if you really think about it, he's been doing this a while. That fight, that legendary fight versus Donald Cerrone, shit, that was in 2009. That was 7 years ago, 6 years ago. It's and he's been with the UFC / Zuffa since joining the WEC. So I think he's got 20 fights now, fighting with Zuffa. That's a lot of fights. I think that wraps it up for UFC Korea. So without any further ado, let's get to the news. First bit of news, Rousey Holm, we're still feeling the shockwaves from that, and in a kind of funny, I guess funny's the right word, Bitch Kohea, Rousey's most recent win, who she fought at 190 before the Holm fight. She says she wants to retire Miesha Tate. I'll make your wish come true, Miesha. And Bitch Kohei is an absolute joke. Let's be serious. She, I guess, realized she's done threatening Ronda, so she's just going to move down to the second most popular 135er and try and start shit-talking her. I'm going to retire you. I'm going to crush you. Bitch Kohei, I don't think holds a candle to the top 5. I think, she beat some of Rousey's buddies, and then somehow got a title shot. One of the biggest question marks as far as earning a title shot. I mean, this makes Chael Sonnen look like he earned his shot against John Jones. Like, this was absolutely ridiculous. I think Miesha Tate crushes her, and I think if they make this fight, they fucked up. Miesha Tate, you cannot argue that she is less than or more than one fight away from a title. Yeah, I can see making Ronda Holm 2 and delaying Miesha and making her fight one more fight against maybe a Kat Zingano or a Amanda Nunes, but Dana said I'm looking after Miesha because once she loses a third time, she's done. No, she's fucking not. If she loses to Ronda a third time, she can still beat other fighters. I mean, if you are number 2, you're number 2. And Miesha has impressive wins against Carmouche, Nakai, McMahon. I still think she deserved the shot over Holly Holm. I think, in all fairness, that maybe you give Miesha a fight against Holm in the spring in like March, and then the winner of Holm versus Miesha fights Rousey at UFC 200. That makes a ton of sense. Rousey was saying even before she lost the belt that she wanted to disappear until UFC 200 anyways, so I'm sure now she'll have no problems doing it. Make the fight Tate Holm, and either way you have an awesome fight at UFC 200. Either rematch is good. Holm Rousey, that sells. Tate Rousey 3, where Tate's the UFC champion. What? That sells. And yeah, bitch, let her fight like, I don't know, who's around at women's bantamweight. I mean, feed her bitches at 7, bitches at 8. Sarah McMahon and Jessica I are at 7 and 9. Give her either one of those girls and she'll get fucking smashed. So those are my thoughts on Miesha Tate, Bitch Gohea, and the women's strawweight division. What do you think?
I'm pretty much on board with you there, Jake. I think Paige Gohea, she definitely kind of lucked into the Ronda Rousey title fight. There was a marketability angle, the undefeated thing. She beat two of Ronda's training partners, that whole angle, but she just got completely chumped in that fight. And Miesha Tate would likely grapple her to death in a fight. And as you mentioned, I think a lot of the top talent at women's bantamweight would handle her. I think Amanda Linus Nunes, she would be a great one for her. You know, you could make those two fight while you have Tate versus Holm happen. I think that'd be a good way for things to shake out. I don't think she'd be able to get past Nunes either. Nunes is a great striker and has a great ground game herself. I think she's better all around than Betch Kohea is, and I think she's definitely one you need to keep an eye out for in the women's bantamweight. I mean, a lot of people are high on Amanda Nunes right now. She's definitely putting it all together, and we could definitely see her challenging for the 135-pound title pretty quick here herself. So, yeah, Betch Kohea, she's trying to get herself a high dollar fight here, it seems like, and more power to her. She's doing her thing. She's putting her brand out there, if you will, or she's trying to do the Conor McGregor thing, but I don't think it's going to turn out as successfully for her.
Yeah, and that brings us to the possible Rousey scenario of a rematch. Holly Holm being questioned recently. I think it was when she did the ESPN car wash, just went through all the ESPN shows. Holm said something like, yeah, if I fought Rousey 10 times, I would have beaten her 10 times. And she, further explained, like, I'm not being cocky, I'm just explaining the mentality you have to go into in a fight like that to fight someone like Ronda Rousey, which is absolutely true. A potential rematch between the two, I think we'll likely see before either one retires. Ronda Rousey, the favorite on 5 Dimes. You can bet on future events that are possible but haven't formally been announced. Holly Holm, Ronda Rousey is one of them. And really quickly too, I want to touch on, I had a tweet, someone saying like, man, all you do is talk about odds. Is this a betting podcast? No. If you want to listen to a betting show, honestly, go look up Fury's Fight Picks. The guy does an awesome subscription service. He does free picks. He puts out a free podcast where he breaks down each event. I actually think he's already released the UFC 194 one, which I'll probably give a listen to sometime before the fights. The dude knows his stuff. He breaks it down perfectly. And when I'm giving out lines, I mean, I'm not thinking about betting on every fight. I rarely bet. I got enough student debt to bet. But what I really like about betting is, the guys in Vegas. Vegas is a multi-billion-dollar industry in itself, sports betting. And these, line setters are experts. They get paid a ton of money to set the lines because, it makes sense for Vegas to set the line as evenly as possible. You set it too far either way, and smart gamblers will take advantage of that and make money off Vegas, So you want to put the line as close to accurate as you can, and you have probably the top experts in the world doing so. So when I'm spitting out lines, I'm not, saying, well, yes, I'll every now and then say, wow, Holm is a real steal at, plus 1,100 or something. But for the most part, I'm giving you the line just to let you know where the experts see the fight. If it's a razor close fight like Tony Ferguson and Edson Barboza, where Ferguson is just a thin -150 favorite, or a huge discrepancy like this Friday's fight where Josh Thompson is a -1,500 favorite over Pablo Villaseca, I'm giving out lines just to sort of give the experts thoughts on it, and give that viewpoint. So yeah, if you are looking to bet, seriously listen to the MMA Oddscast and Luca Fury, because that dude is definitely more knowledgeable than I am about making money in Vegas. But I do digress and want to get back to the point I was getting at, which Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm, they've set the line, and Ronda Rousey is -155. She's the favorite, which for all of you who have no idea what the plus minus means, you're a favorite, and it means you have to bet this amount to profit $100. So if they're a giant favorite, huge, and they're -1,000, that means they're 10-1. You have to bet $1,000 to make 100. If they're a slim favorite like Rousey, -155, you have to bet $155 to profit 100. Not that hard. The underdog has a plus. Holly Holm would be an underdog here, interesting enough, plus 135, and the plus means this is what you profit if you bet $100. So, a huge underdog of $1,000, you multiply your cash crazy, like I did a couple weeks ago, if they are a huge underdog. So that out of the way, sort of, I've never really broken it down for those listeners who have no idea what the lines mean. So I hope that helps as far as future shows and us breaking down lines. And for those of you who do know odds, I'm sorry for wasting 90 seconds of your time there. But Holm plus 135, Rousey -155. This is way closer than the first time around, but I'll say I said it during the first fight, and I'll say it during the second fight, I guess. Y'all giving Holly no love. How is she the underdog? What? I think this was more than a fluky win. This was a exhibition of one fighter being better. And until I see Rousey actually change camps, if Rousey announces she's, going to an awesome camp, maybe I'll give it some consideration. But until I hear that news, I have Holly Holm winning that rematch, and I'm sort of surprised she's an underdog. As dominant as Rousey has been, that was a schooling that Holm put forth at UFC 193. What are your thoughts on the future potential line between Holm and Rousey?
Well, I can't say I'm too surprised in this one, honestly. This kind of reminds me of, I want to say, Anderson Silva versus Chris Weidman. I believe Anderson Silva was the favorite going into their second fight.
I think it was a slight favorite. I can look that up.
Slight, yeah. That I want to say that line was very close. I mean, that was a fairly close line, the closest line had been for Silva in some time going into the first matchup. But it could be one of those things where, does Rousey even need to change camps? Was it just that, as we broke down pretty thoroughly leading up to that fight, there was a lot of media whirlwind, a lot of personal stuff going on with her life. There was so much what seemed to be upheaval in that respect that it seemed like she might not be in the best headspace 100% going into that fight. And it seems like a lot of people have really caught on with that sentiment in a lot of the interviews that I've heard. It seems that there's just kind of been that unanimous agreement that, yeah, there was all this going on. She wasn't really able to focus on the fight. And maybe that's the case. Maybe it's just that this was Ronda Rousey so thrown off her game. She was not able to put forth that good strategy because, I mean, even leading into this fight, we were all kind of saying, oh, well, Holly Holm, she has a shot. The line should not be as gigantic of a disparity as there was in the first place. But, Ronda Rousey, man, it's Ronda Rousey. She'll probably do her thing, but Holm does have what it takes. But, hey, any given night, one punch, anything can happen, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, smart money's on Rousey. And really, it seems that smart money is still on Rousey. And just seemingly that, this was not fluky, as Jake, you had mentioned. This was a technical dissection of Ronda Rousey. It was a very thorough beatdown. And it wasn't fluky in any respect, but maybe it was just the perfect storm, so to speak, for Holly Holm to put on the best performance of her UFC career, which it easily was. I mean, she wasn't able to look anywhere near as good. She arguably got outboxed by Raquel Pennington. I mean, how do you go from that to knocking Ronda Rousey out in such a violent fashion? It's staggering when you look at it in that respect. But I think all of these are still factors as to why Ronda Rousey is still going to be just a slight favorite going into this rematch. The line is definitely closer now and more appropriate to where it should have been in the first fight. But I can still see where the bookmakers are coming from in making Ronda Rousey the favorite.
It's funny looking back. UFC 168, Anderson minus 175 against the Chris Weidman.
Damn.
Yeah, this is fun going back. I've got UFC 101. I have the odds for UFC 101 pulled up. This was toward the end of when they would name UFCs. This is UFC 101 Declaration. And I guess after like 120, 130, they were running out of inspirational words. They're like, dude, let's just stop naming them. Let's call it, UFC 168 Weidman Silva 2. Let's not have gimmicky words. But it's funny. Penn minus 240 over Florian. I'll let you guess this line. Anderson Silva, speaking of the Spider, he fought at UFC 101 against Forrest Griffin. What do you think the closing line was between Anderson and Forrest? Fight that Silva would put forth one of the most... And this is the fight you show your friend when you're trying to get him into mixed martial arts. They're like, what is the sport? You put on Silva Griffin, and Silva is in the fucking Matrix, dodging every punch. Griffin, can't land anything. Silva knocks him out, stepping back. Just an all-timer. What do you think Silva's odds were going into that fight? Because a lot of people, this is when I first started following the sports, a lot of people were saying Silva's only fought at 205 once, and it was against a bum and James Irvin. He is the middleweight champ, but can he go up and really challenge 205ers? And it's a shame we never saw in his prime Silva fight a 205er, because Silva probably could have been a 2-division champion, when the belt was being passed back and forth from Forrest to Rashad, or from Evans to Forrest to Rampage to Lyoto to Shogun, there was a stretch there where it seemed like no one could hold the belt until Jones got it. But final line going into it, Anderson Silva, Forrest Griffin.
Oh man, I'm struggling with this one. I want to say, I feel like this should have been a gigantic one, but I feel like there was a lot of people giving Forrest Griffin a lot of love, saying, "Oh yeah, this, oh, he's a real big 205er. He's a big 205er. He could do the jail thing." Oh man, I want to say Anderson Silva minus 375. Forrest Griffin plus 280.
You're very close, buddy. And Anderson minus 335, Forrest plus 300. So you were not too far off. And looking at the variance between sports books, both of those fell. I think one book had Silva minus 370, and one book had Forrest like plus 260. So not bad guesses there.
There you go.
I think I remembered it being a little closer in the build-up. I did want to discuss Forrest real quick, but before we do, this is an amazing clip from a 2010 interview with Jason Ellis. So shout out to Forrest Griffin, shout out to Jason Ellis. Listen to the Jason Ellis show. Forrest actually talks about what it was like to fight the Spider, and it's one of the most truthful, entertaining interviews from one of the most truthful and entertaining fighters the UFC's ever had, a UFC Hall of Famer, Forrest Griffin, talking about his experience at UFC 101.
I heard a rumor that you're fighting John Bones Jones. Can you confirm or deny that?
I hope I'm not fighting John Bones Jones. I mean, I might be. Fuck it. If I am, I'll do it. But I'm not even training right now. That's a bad dude. That dude will whoop my ass. I mean, fuck it. What's the word? It couldn't be worse than Anderson Silva.
Oh, you're the realest dude in the world.
It shouldn't be worse than that, right? Every fight I go into, no matter what happens, it couldn't be worse than Anderson Silva. Because that shit was a year ago, and literally every day, people ask me something about that.
I wasn't going to bring that up at all.
What happened? What happened? You know what happened? It's on page 23 if you need to know. Check it out.
He punched you in the chin.
Repeatedly.
Yeah.
And I was very confused. And I tried to punch him. And he literally moved his head out of the way and looked at me like I was stupid for doing it. He looked at me like, why would you do such a stupid thing? He looked at me like, oh, did you really think you were going to hit me? What a stupid thing to think, you slow white boy. And then he punched me. And I felt embarrassed for even trying to punch him.
Oh, my God.
I felt like some kid trying to wrestle with his dad.
Forrest Griffin being honest about UFC 101, and I sort of wanted to pose the question. It's been, a couple years since he retired. His last fight was that fight at UFC 148 in 2012 where he beat Tito. How are we going to remember Forrest Griffin? This is, he was a champion. He beat Rampage for the belt at UFC 86. He won the belt. It was the fight of the year in 08. He shocked the world in 07 when he rear naked choked out Shogun at UFC 76. Yeah, he lost the belt to Evans and then the subsequent fight to Silva. But after that, he sort of coasted a little bit. He beat Tito. He beat Rich. Shogun beat him in a rematch, and then he beat Tito again, and then he hung up his gloves. So he only had that one run, when he beat Bonner, then started making a run, lost to Tito, beat Bonner again, and just had that stretch where he shocked the world beating Shogun, beat Rampage for the title. Are we going to think of him as one of the greatest ever? Because he put forth two great fights. He put forth the Shogun upset when Shogun was near or at his prime. And he beat a Rampage who was near or at his prime. This is in 07, 08. Two classic fights. But outside of that, it's a bunch of wins against, an aging Tito, an aging Rich Franklin, Stephan Bonner, Elvis Sinisic, Hector Ramirez, uninspired-looking losses to Evans Silva. Do we remember him as one of the greats? I think he had a couple great fights, but I'm not sure how I'll rank him looking back. It's kind of a disrespectful thing to say he doesn't stack up to a lot of UFC champions, but you think of that string of champions at 205. You had Chuck, who had a string of amazing wins, had the belt for a long ass time. Then Rampage, who had a legendary career in Pride in the UFC. Then Forrest, then Evans, who I think you can say he had a legendary run in the UFC. Anderson, a legend. Or sorry, I gotta stick to the belt lineage. Machida, legend. Shogun, legend. John Jones will probably retire as the best of all time. When comparing the greatness of all these 205, champs at 205 pounds, I just see Forrest as far as greatness and the legendary status of his career. I mean, he didn't do half of what all these other champions have done. And again, I hate saying it because I really love Forrest. He's one of my favorite characters, but I think we're just going to sort of remember him as the guy who won tough and slugged his way to a UFC contract and got into the Hall of Fame for that one fight against Bonner and had two just fights where he fought his ass off and had one of the biggest upsets ever against Shogun and upset Paige to get the belt and then sort of coasted. I don't think his name is going to come up when discussing the best, the best champions, especially at 205. What do you think about how we're sort of going to remember Forrest Griffin as a fighter?
Well, as a fighter, I mean, he had a well-rounded skill set. He had a decent ground game. I mean, he was able to submit Chael Sonnen before he was even in the UFC, so he did have that to him. He was able to
IFC Global Destination in 2003. It was a tournament. He beat Chael, then got head kicked, KO'd by.
Geez. I don't even know.
Jeremy Horn.
Jeremy Horn.
Yeah.
Oh man, there you go. One of Chuck Liddell's homies right there. Yeah, Forrest Griffin. I mean, he never had the. I mean, he was a jack of all trades, but really not the most proficient at everything. He was, he didn't really have a specialty, I should say. He had a decent game, but it wasn't like Chuck Liddell, where man, he had the sprawl and brawl and he had the nasty hands. He had a decent volume there, and he was able to put a beating on some guys, but for the most part, he was just known for being well-rounded and for being super scrappy. He was an endearing character. He was the guy that everybody could root for. He was, fairly articulate, good on the mic, funny character. And, man, it was crazy that Rampage fight that he was able to beat him. I mean, I remember watching that fight, and those leg kicks were really the difference in that fight. And even in the Rashad Evans fight, the one that immediately followed it, he was doing very good in that fight. He was winning that fight pretty much the entire time up until Rashad Evans just caught him right on the button, and that was pretty much it. But up until that, I seem to recall Forrest was winning every round in that fight. if he were able to win that one, who knows? We might be talking about him a little differently. If he were able to defend the title and go on and do Lord knows what, but he did get caught by Rashad Evans that night, and Rashad Evans became the second Ultimate Fighter to become the UFC champion, and he also lost the belt in his first defense. So there you go. As you mentioned, that was part of the long line of that belt getting passed around like a fine doobie. And I think Forrest, he'll always be remembered for his spot on the Ultimate Fighter and for really helping to endear mixed martial arts as a sport and mixed martial artists to the people. And really that's why he's in the Hall of Fame as opposed to his fighting skill set, although he was well-rounded overall, especially for the time.
Yeah, and I think that's how we'll see him. I did mention a little earlier in the show that our buddy, the Westland Eagle, was at UFC South Korea, and I told him to call in, and I think he's finally done so. Alan, are you back home from Asia, from Korea? How was the event? Tell us about it. Are you there?
I am here.
What's up, buddy?
Big Alan.
What's up, everybody?
Dude, so you flew to Korea. How long was the flight?
I mean, did I fly to North Korea or South Korea? Because you and Kenny Florian seem to both have that problem of distinguishing between the two.
Wait, so I can't just call it Korea?
I mean, because I definitely didn't fly to Korea, no.
Well, I mean, I think I can cut off the South because it's not like if
When you fly to North Korea, you don't come back. That's the difference.
If I said I drove to Carolina, the question would be there because it's like, well, there are things in South Carolina that Jake could have driven to. There are also things in North Carolina. When I say Alan flew to Korea, I think the average educated listener would think he probably flew to South Korea because it's unlikely that they'd have American airlines flights going from LAX to Pyongyang. But, I will make the specification. I don't know if that's how they prefer it over in South Korea. But, Alan, you traveled to South Korea. How long was the flight over there to South Korea?
It was actually really long. We flew from Dallas to San Francisco, and then from San Francisco to South Korea, to Seoul, to Incheon Airport, and it was 12 and a half hours.
Did you sleep? What did you do? Mile High Club?
Oh, yeah.
I was on the mile on the way home, but on the way there, I didn't sleep too much. I pretty much just watched some Bruce Campbell, Ash versus Evil Dead episodes. Got caught up on that amazing show. People check it out if you can. But I seemed to not have a problem with traveling. I didn't have any jet lag or anything when I got there. Same thing when I went to Japan, no problems. So I mean, the traveling's not a big deal. You have to take a 2-hour bus from the airport to the hotel because I stayed in Gangnam, Gangnam style. I stayed in that part of Seoul, and it's a really long drive from the airport because Gangnam is like all the way on the other side.
So I mentioned to the listeners, you didn't just fly out for the event. You spent 2 weeks. What did you do? What is there to do in South Korea? I guess I was texting you during because I guess you had WhatsApp, but you didn't visit the DMZ, which is probably a good thing. But yeah, what stuff was there to do and see?
Man, there's so much. We visited like all of the specialized districts within Seoul. There, all the but like the ground transportation. First off, the subway system, it's amazing. You can get anywhere. There's a subway exit pretty much in every single part of the city. It's really cheap. You just you get a little card and put money on it. I guess that's how all other subways work, because that's the first subway system besides Japan.
But
and
minus
Tokyo
the bums and dirtiness and people begging you for change.
It's so clean. We saw one bum the entire 13 days we were there. But basically all we did was we didn't go to the National Forest. We didn't go to the DMZ. We didn't take any like tour guide type, deals that, that's what the normal people do when they go on vacation and visit a place. We basically just made sure that we saw almost every part of the city. And it's a huge city. I think it's like 20-something million people live in that city. And it's separated by the Han River. So, when you cross the Han River on the subway, you can see the whole city because it has to go up above ground. But that's all we did. We went shopping, tried food, just basically covered everything on foot. Went to the Olympic Stadium.
What was the craziest thing you ate?
I didn't really go too crazy with the food. I had some fried squid tentacles, and also I had some squid on the stick.
That's pretty crazy.
Which was fried. Not really, because whenever we went and ate one night with Korean top team's coach, Coach Ha,
nice.
And he was trying to get us to me and one of the other guys from Instagram and Facebook. His name's Rex Lee. If you go back and watch, he walked out with I think with Taeyong Bong. He walked out with him, and he was their translator. He was wearing like a plaid shirt. He was the only one in non-Reebok gear. But he tried to get me and Rex and my wife to eat like live food, like squid. Like they serve the squid to where it's still alive.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was trying to get us to eat that, and I don't think anybody else was game for it. I mean, I was willing to try it, but that was about the craziest thing that I ate.
You mentioned Coach Ha, which we are running a little long this week. I do want to get you on maybe before the year's over to talk about your amateur fight, because we did mention it, but I don't think we actually talked to you about you having a AMI fight and winning. I think you went and actually trained a little bit with Korean top team. How often did you do it, and how was that? Did you hit mitts or grapple with anyone of note over there at KTT?
The only famous fighter from over there. I mean, I was on the mats with Taeyong Bong, but Lim, he was injured, so he wasn't there. And Dong Yi Yang, he wasn't there that day. I think he was working. So if you ever watch Top FC or there's the last time this guy fought was in the Middle East. He fought in Abu Dhabi. He was the headliner for Korean top team. He fought and beat the dude in like a 1-round KO at this Abu Dhabi MMA championship thing. His name's Sun Hong Chan. He's probably like the 4th or 5th best guy at Korean top team. He's a really good wrestler. He pretty much dominates everybody. But I got to spar with him, and then their other coach, I can't remember his name, but he's all over their Facebook. I got to spar with him, and then their female fighter, Yu Jin, I got to, spar with her a little bit, get beat up, get punched in the face. But all those guys, they all fight in Top FC, and you can see them on there. But I only trained there one day, pretty much with everything going on. The second week I was there, like a lot of the guys were busy doing like other stuff, and it just wasn't enough time to do everything. I didn't want to spend all my free time basically being a gym rat, because I had my wife with me. So.
Word, yeah, the newlywed Westland Eagle. Really quick, what did you think about that card? You know, a lot of things from the steel KO slam / accidental headbutt wins by Seo Hee Ham, Tai Hyung Bang, Dongyi Yang, Korean Superboy. Maybe now has earned a fight against a ranked opponent. A fight I thought should have been a draw in Minya and Sexyama. Stun gun getting a first round KO. A fight that Pat scored toward Masvidal on the main event. You were there live. What was it like, there in Korea experiencing fights outside of the U.S., and what did you take away from the card itself?
Starting with the top of the card, we actually left before the Benson Henderson and Masvidal fight, because in South Korea and Seoul, the public transit stops running at 11:50 at night. So the fights, I think it was 10 something whenever Benson was about to walk out.
Did lots of folks leave?
For the most part, no. There was some fans that left, but not very many. Most people stayed. So they were when we left and went to the subway outside the arena, there was 150 taxis lined up. So they knew that there was going to be a late event.
Yeah.
So they were prepared, but I didn't want to pay for a taxi, and so we just left early. But yeah, man, all the fights from Dong Young Kim, I expected that to happen. That was pretty expected. There's nothing special about that or anything. But all the other fights of the night, they were all just electric. From even the very first fight where Kim Dong Young Kim's training partner came out, his walkout basically set the tone of the whole night, because when he walked out, everybody, the South Korean fans, I would put them third behind the Brazilians and behind the Irish in supporting their own fighters. They did such a great job. They were behind from the walkouts. They were behind their fighters when their fighters started doing really good, or when Tae Young Bong, after the big hit and everything, he got taken down. He kind of looked like he was gassed. All they did was just chant for him and chant, until he got back to his feet. And it was really incredible to be there.
Yeah, probably. They seem really into their fighters, but I would guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would guess that they're a little more respectful. I can't picture a group of South Korean fans chanting "You're gonna die" at any other opponent in South Korean, which actually makes me wonder, what does "You're gonna die" sound like in Korean? I'm looking it up right now on Google Translate.
당신은 죽을 거야.
So if you hear
당신은 죽을 거야,
coming from a South Korean crowd, you know that they're taking after the Brazilians. Sorry, you can go ahead.
Well, you definitely won't hear that, because they are super respectful. That's one of the main things, differences I see besides South Koreans and Japanese. In Japan, they'll be respectful, but you're more than likely they're just going to be quiet and clap, and they'll cheer at certain points. But the Koreans, they're more like Americans in the fact that they're going to be vocal, and cheer their people the whole time. They had some really, really annoying American fans there that I guess were soldiers, and they were chanting stupid shit. Stand them up, and the stupid when are y'all gonna fight? Just anytime there was a slow moment in a fight, they were the typical embarrass the rest of us American fans.
Stop pumping one another. Woo! America!
Yeah, it was some shit like that. It was really bad. It was embarrassing. But there was 2 points where USA started getting chanted in one of the fights, and it was hilarious because all the South Korean fans just started to boo, and there were so many of them that they just drowned out the USA and then started cheering, and it was really funny. So that was awesome.
당신은
And the fact
죽을
that all the Korean
거야.
fighters are my favorites, and everybody knows I'm a Korean fighter fanboy since Korean Zombie and all the way back then.
Yeah, it was a good night for the South Koreans in Taehyung, Bang, Yang, Ham, Choi. Do you think Choi is the real deal? Honestly, bias aside, do you think he could make his way into the top 10 at featherweight? He's still young. He might need a little more time. I don't know.
Man, the holes in his game, I think, can all be cleared up now because he's training at Dong Young Kim's gym now. He's no longer training with one training partner and his boxing coach. He's moved, and he's made that step. Whereas, everybody when Stage Northcutt came out, they're like, he needs to go to a different gym, go join a big team. And, Dong Young Kim's gym, they've got some pretty good grapplers there. So I think that's at least the first step, whether or not he leaves and goes somewhere else after that. But if you ever watch his YouTube videos, he basically has one training, grappling, sparring partner, and then his coach. And I just ain't gonna cut it in the UFC. So for him, this last camp he did with Team Mad in Busan, that was really cool. Shout out to Luke Thomas's video, the Monday Morning Analyst. He did a complete breakdown of Sam Cecilia and Du Ho Choi, pointed out, all his weaknesses, all his strengths, and just broke down the whole fight, even though it was a minute and 50 seconds or something. He broke it down, and showed slides and, talked about the footwork and just everything. And if anybody wants to go listen to Luke Thomas's Monday Morning Analyst this past week for the Du Ho Choi breakdown. And, he kind of tells you that, he could be the real deal. He does have some gaps and there's some openings, but, he definitely has potential, way more skilled than Korean Zombie ever was as far as a striker. I mean, he's probably the best South Korean striker that we've ever seen. And,
only 24.
Yeah, and being where he's at, the grappling, that's really gonna... And he's a really cool dude because he had time to say hey to me and take a picture when people were trying to mob him.
That's awesome. So. Yeah, now 2 fights in the UFC, one being an 18-second TKO versus Juan Puig, and now a 93-second KO against Sam Cecilia. We'll see who he gets next. Like I said, this show is running a little long, so I would keep you on, but we have a few more things to wrap up really quickly before I let you go, though. In about 9 days now, we have the culmination of 3 awesome cards. I mean, we looked at these cards, and all 3 are relatively deep. And it will come to a end with 2 title fights on Saturday night, a middleweight title fight between Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold, and of course the much anticipated featherweight title fight between Jose Aldo and Conor McGregor. Alan on Twitter at WestlandEagleAH, who walks out of the MGM Grand Garden Arena with those 2 UFC championship belts?
Man, it's really funny. I just bought another t-shirt. Join the team, ladies and gentlemen, because this is your last opportunity. Come Saturday night, it will be too late. If you don't join the team, 178-pound Chris Weidman is going to KO Luke Rockhold on the feet. It's not even going to go to the ground because Luke Rockhold has terrible stand-up. He's stiff. He throws one shot. He doesn't throw combinations. He's got nothing for Chris Weidman on the feet. On the ground, it'd be a different thing, but it's not going to get there. As far as Jose Aldo and Conor McGregor, I really can't pick anybody. I liked Conor McGregor whenever he first started. Loved him, but I think he's just turned into an asshole. He's just self-absorbed. Aldo is still pretty humble. humble and respectful. And, I would like to see Connor get his shit punched in, but I still kind of root for the guy because all his dreams come true. You don't want to root against somebody. You always want positive things to happen to people. Technically speaking, I think Aldo's the better fighter, has a better chance, but I think, like the Chad Mendes fight, something magical is going to happen, and Connor, I think he wins somehow. He's not gonna go 5 rounds with Aldo and win a decision, but I think maybe he knocks out Aldo or beats him by submission.
You heard it here first. The Eagles picks are Chris Weidman and Conor McGregor. The ban has been lifted. Alan, you are welcome back anytime. Glad the trip was safe, and I'm sure I'll be chatting with you in the group chat in a matter of minutes, and we'll go back to calling each other faggots and acting horribly to one another as per usual. Huh? You have any shout-outs? Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody hit up Tip a Fighter at Tip a Fighter on Twitter, Facebook, Tip a Fighter. They do contests for the fighters after their fights. Highest tipper wins, like fight shorts or whatever. Follow them. They're badass. That's another way that you can give to your favorite fighters. I tipped both of the Korean top team fighters this past weekend and Do Ho Choi. I didn't give Dong Young Kim any money because he's a conceited asshole who doesn't have time on Tuesday of fighting to take a simple picture with his fan. So, yeah.
And visit Tip a Fighter. And if you are listening and you have Twitter up right now, this is what you need to do. Go to write a tweet or create tweet and mention Alan at Westland Eagle AH. Also mention his brother Hunter at Hero Shinwoo. Hero, Hero, Shinwoo, SHINWOO. And simply write Pay Alan. So just mention Alan, mention Hunter, and just say, pay Alan. And if we can get a bunch of tweets going at Hunter to pay Alan, maybe he'll pay back some outstanding loans. And Hunter is going to be absolutely furious when he starts getting those tweets and or listens to this part of the podcast. Alan, I love you, brother, and I'll... like I said, I'll talk to you shortly. Later, man.
Bye, faggot.
Peace. And that was a very close friend, Alan, the Westland Eagle, Hamilton. Sorry for leaving you high and dry there, Pat, but it was... I actually haven't spoken to him, like over the phone or over the Skypes, and heard about the trip in length, but it sounded pretty fun.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I had not got to hear about it in too much detail either, so I was able to interject and at least give my pleasantries there to the true homie Alan at Westland Eagle AH on Twitter and Instagram. So no, it was good. Definitely great to hear from the homeboy.
Hear from the homeboy Alan. I want to get to a fight announcement made. Apparently, Michael Bisping's going to be fighting Gegard Mousasi February 27th at the O2 in London. Both of these guys, I guess, legends in their own right. I mean, Bisping has been around for a while, been around for a decade now in the UFC. Gegard spent a lot of time outside the UFC, but now he's joined and he's had a little bit of a struggle recently, especially with that loss to Uriah Hall. He came in, got handed a gimme fight in Ilir Latifi, lost to Machida, beat an aging Mark Munoz, lost to Jacare, beat an aging Dan Henderson, beat an aging Costa Philippou, lost to Uriah Hall. Now he's fighting Mike Bisping. This could go either way. I guess, Gegard has the technical advantage, while Bisping probably I don't know, a bit stronger maybe. This should be a close fight. Sort of, not one name really popping up immediately in my head. Who are you taking?
Oh shoot, I'm definitely taking Gegard Mousasi in this one. I just think Bisping is a little further along his decline than Mousasi is. I think Mousasi, I think they're about the same in age, but I think Mousasi is a little bit younger. I'm not quite sure, but and in spite of getting caught in his fight with Uriah Hall, he just seemed to be a little bit stronger as of late. And I
Pickles.
think
Pickles meowing.
He's
like
got a
fool
little bit
in the background.
like a little bitch. I'm gonna fucking murder this cat buried in the backyard because I should be able to. That's my right as an American.
Pickles.
Yeah, but no, I think Gegard Mousasi just is at a better spot in his career right now. In spite of coming off of that fluke knockout loss to Uriah Hall, that work of a finish right there. I don't know what that was all about, but I think Gegard is a little bit better everywhere in this one, and I like him to win the fight.
Yeah, and I guess I'm leaning Gegard too, but I think Bisping has a chance. Speaking of Bisping had some choice words about Chris Weidman. Did a Periscope on the Fox set, and then in like a car, or like I forget where, but basically says that Luke Rockhold's going to kick his ass. Chris Weidman then had some, Weidman's usually reserved. He won't talk shit. He had some words for the Count Bisping. I'll play you what Bisping had to say, followed by Weidman's response. This is Bisping.
Where's Weidman? Weidman's in preparation, about to get his ass kicked. How do you think he does against Luke Rockhold?
I think he gets beat, to be honest. Somebody that can stop the takedowns, keep the fight on the feet, who's young and in the prime, like Rockhold is. I think Rockhold's going to give him a nightmare.
So Bisping with the choice words, and this is Chris Weidman, a little more outspoken than we usually see him. Had an interesting response.
Bisping is a joke. I would love for him to fight for the title because it would be. I said on Twitter before that I could beat him sleepwalking. I literally think I could beat him while I'm sleepwalking. He has no punching power, so I could literally fall asleep as he's punching me, and just get a hold of him and throw him on the floor. If he doesn't get knocked out when he falls to the floor, I could just submit him. I could submit him with my eyes closed 100%. That's not even me talking any junk. That's just me being honest. Like, that poor guy, it's just such an easy fight. Like, I don't think I would even have to get in shape for it. I hope to God that he somehow gets his way to the top. Because right now he's so far from it, but I just really hope he can get there. Because I know he'd talk trash back and it'd be exciting. But I just don't know. I don't have full confidence that he could get to the top. Like, you'd have to win, like, boring decision to get here. You'd have to fluffer nut people to a decision.
Who are they going to give him, Romero next?
Yeah, if he fights a guy like Romero.
What's a fluffer nut?
Oh man, he'd really have to get lucky to win that fight.
A hot take by Chris Weidman, and that was courtesy of the YouTube channel MMA Digest. Go check them out over there. Not that they need any more subscribers. But yeah, MMA Digest with the response from Chris Weidman. I thought that was pretty funny. Do you think Chris Weidman could sub Bisping blindfolded? I say yes.
You know what? I mean, who can call it better than the champ? I believe his assessment over mine. If the champ says he can do it, he can do it. And he's definitely looked every bit of it. I mean, hey, look what he was able to do for Damian Maia, for God's sakes. Yeah, he could definitely have his way with Michael Bisping on the ground.
Yeah, and I think that is the end of news. We have a couple fights to break down on this Paige versus Thug Rose card. One thing I did want to bring up, I'm not going to inject my opinion because I'm sure there's more to be released. This story just was released less than 24 hours ago. But a very, very, very interesting story, and you can go check it out following at Mike Russell MMA or going to realfightstories.com. Wild story. Basically, currently the deputy director, the number 2 guy at the CIA, what's his name? Cohen. He working for the NYPD, recruits this guy named Ali Abdelaziz, who is currently the World Series of Fighting vice president and matchmaker. They bring the NYPD and the FBI bring in Ali Abdelaziz, allegedly, to be an informant, and sometime into that relationship, they just cut it off and tried to deport Abdelaziz because they indirectly accused him of being a double agent and supplying information to terror organizations. Front Row Brian, which really kind of encapsulates what the next thought is, which is, if you had a controversial, to say the least, background, wouldn't you want to stay as far away from the spotlight as possible? So there's, this guy that, the MMA world has gotten to know that has been embroiled in some scandal recently, and now there is the story lingering out there that he was an ex-informant who the FBI cut off and tried to deport when they realized and indirectly accused him of being a double agent for a terror group. Just wild shit, and like I said, there's probably more to come, so I'm not going to inject my two cents in. I'm not going to stick my dick in a briar patch, so to speak. But if you want to check it out for yourself, always follow Front Row Brian, because that motherfucker is 9 times out of 10 the first on a story like this to really be talking about it. And I want to say 98 times out of 100 he's right about shit. He and Bloodstained Lane were the first people talking about the John Jones wreck, which ended up getting him stripped of the title. Yeah, he fucked up one thing, which he may not have even been wrong about in the first place, talking about the coke. But Front Row Brian gets a lot of undue hate, and the guy, he's a nice fucking guy, and a must follow if you're an MMA fan. As is his show, the Filthy FRB Show, and if I'm plugging podcasts, the T-Row and Funky Show. Follow Mike Russell MMA and Real Fight Stories for more of that, because just some fucking really wild shit. Let's get to UFC Fight Night and then put a bow around it. I know we've been going long. We had a nice streak of sub 2-hour podcasts. The streak's going to be broken, unfortunately, but we don't have too much more to go here. I want to talk about the main card of this Thursday night card. Namajunas versus Paige Van Zandt. Like I said, a lot of familiar faces on the prelims. Kaylin Curran, Felipe Nover, Aljamain Sterling, Kevin Casey, Tim Means versus John Howard. That will be a very worthwhile prelim to watch. Keep your eyes on Aljamain Sterling, man. I've been saying it for a while now, but he is the future of that division at 135. Mark my words. Pardon me. He will, whether it's 1 year, 4 years, he's going to be the champ eventually. Let's get to the main card, though. Really breaking these fights down one by one. I was planning on it first, but I might just do it in a big bunch just because we've gone so long here. Elias Thurido versus Thiago Santos, the tough Canada winner, against a Brazilian who's on a decent run. Sage Northcutt, the guy who's going to be getting a lot of cred, even though he's only had one UFC fight. The guy's like 19. Jim Miller versus Michael Chiesa. I really enjoy this fight. You have Jim Miller, who just beat Danny Castillo via split decision. Michael Chiesa, who just beat Mitch Clark via unanimous decision. Both of them share losses to Joe Lauzon and are trying to string together a 2-fight win streak. And we got Thug Rose against 12-gauge Paige Van Zant. Paige, a winner in her last 4 fights. Her last loss to Tisha Torres. And Thug Rose on a 1-fight winning streak after losing the fight to Carla Esparza for the inaugural UFC Women's Strawweight Championship. What stands out? I'll let you break it down first. What are you looking forward to seeing on this main card?
Well, for the main card specifically, I hate to do it, but I have to jump back to the prelims real quick. As you mentioned, Aljamain Sterling's taking on Johnny Eduardo. That is just going to be such a sick fight. It's going to be a great card from top to bottom, really. I mean, there's familiar names in pretty much every single fight here, going down to the second fight at featherweight. Zubaira Tukhugov versus Felipe Nova. I just butchered that name so bad. Felipe Nova, we remember him, I'm sure. Tukhugov? I think it's Tukhugov.
I'm not even going to try. There are way too many consonants in that word.
There's a lot going on for our white bread asses, but no, names in pretty much every single fight. Santiago Ponzinibbio, Carlos Jr., whose nickname is Shoeface, taking on King Kevin Casey, Omari Akhmedov, Tim Means versus John Howard, my boy, the Dirty Bird. The Dirty Bird versus Doomsday. The scrapping is going to happen. It's going to be a good card. I mean, and it's only going to get better day after day. In this card, best Fight Pass card probably ever, I'd say. There have been some decent ones. They have been putting on some good ones as of late. But, man, this one is looking pretty dang strong as of right now. But, the main card specifically, actually, as I look back on it, I may be looking forward to the preliminary card more so than the main card. I mean, Sage Northcutt kind of getting there due to positioning. I think Tim Means versus John Howard has a little bit more relevance in their division, so to speak. Sage Northcutt, it'll be interesting to see how he does. Can he keep the hype train going? I'm sure.
Are they going to protect this kid until he gets like a crazy fight? Because, I mean, I think that would maybe be to Sage's disadvantage. You shield him, and then once he finally gets a big shot, he gets absolutely embarrassed. I mean, I've been reading stuff about Sage, especially about his dad. His dad, like, crazy stuff about he was like a former bodybuilder but also steroid dealer and had like 25 pounds or like kilos of coke on him and fucking shit about his dad saying that Sage can fight 5-minute rounds and not even break a sweat, yet the conditioning they're doing at TriStar is too much for him, and he's like, I'm gonna travel with him for his next camp at TriStar so I can monitor. Sounds like a helicopter parent if I've ever heard of one. Coming from someone who was always given a long leash, I feel kind of bad for Sage and his sister, who I think is also an MMA champion with some organization. Their parents sound fucking insane. I think it's Mark is his dad's name, Mark Northcutt. If your kid's going to be joining the UFC at some point, I understand he's only 19, but you got to give the kid a leash and let him make choices of his own eventually. And it also is a little suspicious when you see a motherfucker this jacked up doing like front flips from like going like 0 to front flip and fucking looking yoked up, and your dad's a former steroid dealer. Like I hope he wasn't juicing those kids up from the time they were sucking off a bottle, but that it's muddy, and I really do, honestly, I hope the best for Sage, and Sage gets a lot of unwarranted hate, and it sucks because it's not his fault. He gets all this media love, and he gets all of this praise. You can't blame him for that. You have to blame the media. It's not, what is he supposed to do? Like, saying, no, you can't take pictures. It's not the kid's fault. He gets a lot of undue hate. And he seems like a nice kid. I've seen him on Ariel's show. He seems like a genuinely nice kid. I don't wish him any malice. That being said, I just don't see the Sage Northcutt story ending well. And, maybe he is able to have a long career and learn a bunch and maybe be an elite fighter one day. But I've seen stories like this before, and they don't tend to usually end well. I guess those are my 2 cents on the Sage Northcutt scenario. And Paige is sort of similar. They're calling this the Paige and Sage card because it's the 2 fighters that the UFC pumps up that people don't think deserve the credit. Paige fighting a legit opponent in Rose Namajunas. I don't know if I'm supposed to pronounce that J or not. But yeah, Paige will probably win. Sage will definitely win. Both of them are being fed good style matchups, and in the case of Sage, he's getting fed a can. They'll both probably win. But if either lose, especially if Sage loses, expect the MMA world to lose their shit. Sorry for cutting you off there, wherever you were breaking down the main card.
Jesus Christ, Jake, what the fuck is this? No, I agree pretty much. The thing with Sage Northcutt, though, is that he is, 19, 20 years old tops. He's not older than 20. I want to say he's like 19 or maybe just turned 20, something like that. But
19.
It may be 19 still. Maybe a good thing to have his dad around because wasn't there just a video of Sage Northcutt? He's on the local news. He's bending frying pans. That's all well and good. That's good, good-natured stuff. But then you see the video of, him and his brother tasering each other. Now, is that the kind of thing that his father condones, or is that the kind of thing that happens in his father's presence? If so, then his father certainly doesn't need to be around. But if this is happening in his absence, then... yeah, hopefully this isn't the kind of thing that Dad would be egging on. Maybe he needs to have something.
Go hard.
He's a young go hard, That's the thing. But hey, so when you're a young go hard, man, you fly high, and sometimes you crash pretty low at the same time when you're a young go hard. Those young go hards, you have accidents every now and then. Things happen to the young go hards. We've all heard those stories. We don't want Sage to be a statistic. He's an up-and-coming UFC champ. That's like Donald Cerrone riding his dirt bike without a helmet. You don't want him to do it, but is that just something he's going to do no matter what? I'd prefer that he doesn't, but if his dad can prevent that kind of behavior, that'd be in his best interest because, sure, you want to talk about the long-term effects of sparring or whatever it may be, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, things of that nature. Well, I'm sure playing around with stun guns and repeatedly shocking yourself, I don't think that would be super good. I don't know if there's a ton of data on the tasing and stuff like that, but hey, people have died from being tased just as it is. So definitely not something to play around with. That's really fucking stupid. If his dad can curb that kind of shit.
I went to UF and actually had a class in the building and room where the infamous "Don't Tase Me, Bro" event happened. His name was Andrew Meyer. Yeah.
Do they have a plaque?
At the time, I wish they did, but at the time, I had a buddy going to UF2 named Andrew Meyer, and when I heard Andrew Meyer was the one, I texted him. I'm like, dude, luckily it was a different Andrew Meyer, but it was spelled the same way, and it was not my buddy. Don't tase me, bro.
Wow, that is quite the odd coincidence. Yeah, but I don't know. I just that's what I think about that particular piece of news. Sage definitely seems to be given the slow build up here, and I don't think it's a detrimental thing. I mean, this is his second fight in the UFC. Time to start picking up the pace after this one, though. This is just the time when, and part of it is, can you just beat the guys that are set up in front of you? Can you make the layups? Yeah, I think we can all agree this is supposed to be one of those layups, but this is only his second fight in the UFC. Can you make that layup? Now you're on the main card of an event, and you got a whole lot more spotlight on you than you do when, I want to say, he was like the first or second fight on the prelims of a card very recently. So this is a step up for him in that respect, and this is probably more to see how he can handle that aspect of it more so than the opponent he's facing. But yeah, let's see how that plays out. I don't disagree with slow bringing up some of the talent in the UFC. I think that's something they need to do a little bit more in some cases. I mean, there's some prospects that are good to fast track, some that are, ready to go, and some that, in the case of a guy like Sage Northcutt, is just so young. You need to bring him along just a little slower, just to give him some time to mature and develop. I think. Look at Michael May, Dave McDonald. He probably could have done well with a little more slow paced upbringing himself.
Yeah, and man, I think that's all I have for the UFC Fight Night card, and subsequently this podcast. Do you have anything else for the people before we put a bow on it?
Big Jake the Snake. I think that's about all I got for this one. Looking forward to this card. Looking forward to breaking down all the other cards that we got coming up next week. We got a couple more to look forward to, and yeah, always a pleasure doing it with you.
You too, my man. Follow him on Twitter at Sweet Pappy Jones. Follow Alan, who popped on for a little while with us, at Westland Eagle AH. Tweet Hero Shinwoo and just say pay Alan. Follow our boy Yao _ the truth. Follow the Jew Ross Finkelstein. E before the L. C Lowenstein. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure the E's before the N there, but that wasn't even in question. And if all of the love, honestly, one show I'll just sit and make a list and rattle off a million. Mad Samurai, Brooks B, our boy Mystery Deja, who has a new track we're going to play tonight's show out with in just a minute here. Check out his SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/mystery-meds, MEDZ. Check out the tracks over there on his SoundCloud. Like I said, Mike Russell MMA for that piece on the World Series of Fighting VP. All of you, I love you. Like I said, the Filthy FRB show, the T-Row and Funky show, our boy Kevin Black at Technics, MMA Mental, of course, the J Jeans, Fatal Tito. All of you, I love each and every one. And I guess, we had a mass shooting just about 12 hours ago. I'll go ahead and send this one out in memory of all those who lost their lives and families. And, with stuff like this, look, I'm the last person in the world who's going to get into politics. A, because you came here for MMA, not fucking politics. And B, because I'm honestly on the fence about a lot of shit. But when stuff like this happens, if you have an urge to get into politics and get political, I would urge you to instead realize that life is fragile and tell the people you love that you love them. We're not going to be around here forever. Sorry to end it on such a somber note, but I love each and every one of you. We'll be back next week, and we're wrapping it up with the new track by Mystery, Dark Skies. I love you. We gone.
I'm chasing, followed by dark skies. In the middle of the jungle like Far Cry. I'm just chilling, listening to Far Side. Watch me guitar slide like Marty McFly. Hard times on the dark side. All eyes on me. I'm not ready to die. So kiss the game goodbye. I epitomize the realness. You can see it in my eyes. I'll rip Slim Jesus to pieces, cause he's not even decent. Same shit over and over. Wash, rinse, and repeat it. Hit him with the thriller. Moonwalk on him and then I say beat it. Defeated since a fetus. The flow make you seasick. This ain't a remix. The flow make you seasick. This ain't a remix.
The great thing about the ancient alien theory is the fact that we can compare modern achievements with stories from our ancient past. There are many ancient legends which suggest that some of the monuments were built with the help of acoustic levitation. And the ancient astronaut theory suggests that this is a direct result of extraterrestrials tampering with our DNA. So we're half human and half extraterrestrial. We're hybrids.